great. So happy we can do this again after what is, very long pause of 5 years, but having all of you back in the Rolex Forum and having all the troupe of Ig Nobelists extraordinaire is a great joy. I'll just mention in 1 second, I'm Nicola Marzari. I'm the director of one of the National Center of Competence in Research that the Swiss National Science Foundation creates every few years, usually for a significant amount of time, to really push, first and foremost, research in certain direction. And our own theme is computational design and discovery of novel materials, on the ground that really materials change our lives. I often say they enable the technologies that power the economies that sustain our society. And so if you wonder why we can have, for better or for worse, cell phones that are more powerful than the most powerful supercomputers of 20 years ago in our pockets, or why the, say, jet engines, the turbine blades don't melt while you fly, or why we can feed actually 8 billion of people thanks to fertilizer, it's all due to materials. And these days we can predict the properties of materials using quantum mechanical simulations and computers, and so we are accelerating and streamlining this entire effort. But national centers of competence are not only about research, they are about also devising interesting and novel strategies for knowledge and technology transfer, for education, for communication, for equal opportunities. And I think there is a second slide over there that sort of tries to highlight this and just some of the activities that we have been pushing. And this is one that is very fond to all of us. So without further hesitation, it's my great pleasure to invite to the podium Sara Bonella, that is the Deputy Director of SECAM. That's an international organization with 28 members all over the world, headquartered here at EPFL and appropriately on simulations at the atomistic, molecular, and material scale. And she will be accompanied by Dirk Grandler, that is a close friend and colleague from the department, Institute of Materials, to deliver the traditional welcome speech. So please make your way to the podium.
Welcome. Welcome. And now again. Take a bow. Hi. I'm Marc Abrahams. I'm the editor of a magazine called the Annals of Improbable Research. And back in 1991, I started something called the Ig Nobel Prize ceremony, which I'll tell you quite a bit about. Many of you know that we used to do something similar to this here every year, and then the pandemic came and we had to stop for the last 4 years. I want to tell you it's a really great pleasure for me to be able to come back here and do this. So thank you all very much for inviting us and for coming. Here's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to tell you all about the Ig Nobel Prizes and about the most recent winners. I'll show you lots of pictures. And then we have three Ig Nobel Prize winners with us. If you could stand up and take a quick bow. Sit down. Each of them will do a 10-minute talk about what they did, and if possible, they'll explain why they did it. Then at the very end, if we have time, which I think we will, we'll take a few questions, and that's what we'll do. So, this is all about improbable research and the Ig Nobel Prizes. By improbable is a different word than impossible. It just means not likely. It really means, to us, whatever you think is going to be coming at you, whatever you think the meaning of something is, it's probably going to turn out to be something different, at least in the things we show you. And the prizes are real prizes, which I'll give you in detail. And down deep, all of this is about things that are surprising, real things that are so surprising that they make people laugh and then think. That's people's first reaction the moment they hear about it. There's something that makes them laugh, and then there's something that sticks in their head so that even a week later, they want to tell their friends about it. The prizes are the Ig Nobel Prizes. There are 10 of them every year, and we get something like 9,000 or 10,000 nominations in a typical year, so it's not easy to win these prizes. And I'll give you a little bit of a history here. I picked out just a very few of the winners. Now remember, there are 10 a year. We've been doing it for 33 years now. So that's a lot of Ig Nobel Prize winners. Here are just a few. Oh, and I think our logo probably does not need an explanation. No? This is the beginning of a scientific research paper. As you can see, the title is A Study on the Coffee Spilling Phenomena in the Low Impulse Region. It's kind of slightly awkward wording that you're used to if you're a physicist or a technologist, but many people who are not in those worlds have a little trouble with some of the words. What this study is about is very simple. Somebody was trying to answer the question, if you have a full glass of liquid, full cup of coffee, whatever, it's full, and you walk in a normal way at a normal speed, what happens? It's probably going to spill. And people tried to figure out what's the physics going on here. And what they discovered was the physics almost guarantees that if you walk in a normal way, it will spill. It's not that you're clumsy. Well, you might be clumsy, but even if you're not, A normal person walking in a normal way is almost certainly going to spill it. We gave an Ig Nobel Prize to 2 physics professors who did that, studying this. These prizes get a lot of press attention around the world. In South Korea, there was a kid in high school who read about that prize, and he started wondering, what happens when you hold a cup of coffee, full cup of coffee in your hand the same way, and you walk backwards? Is it the same physics? That's what this paper is about. Okay. That and all the other things I'm telling you about, you can go look up copies of these. If you go to our website, improbable.com, there's one page that lists all the winners with links to most of these things. This is a picture of the winner holding up a cup of coffee at the Ig Nobel Prize ceremony. The ceremony happens every year in September. It's been for 30 years now at Harvard University. The first 4 years before that, it was at MIT, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is in the same city. It's held in a magnificent, beautiful, big theater, fits 1,100 people. It's always completely full. The winners come from around the world. And on that stage, waiting to shake their hand, waiting to hand them their Ig Nobel Prize, are several people who have Nobel Prizes. And these are the 10 magic moments. The winners are secret until that moment. And then the winner comes out through a little curtain, and there's a Nobel Prize winner. They look at each other, and you can see neither one quite believes what is happening. You may have noticed there's a second person in this picture who's painted silver. We usually have 2 of those people in the ceremony. They have a very important job. They are human spotlights. That's a flashlight, a torch. They illuminate the proceedings. This particular person is the person who invented this concept of the human torch. His name is Jim Brett. He has a PhD from MIT. He's an inventor. He's got several patents. And one of them, at least, you may have heard of. Jim Brett is one of the people who invented something called 3D printing, 3-dimensional printing. But many people feel this is the more important thing that he came up with. This is from a different prize, a different year. This is a drawing from a patent. And the inventors call this a brassiere that in an emergency can be quickly separated into 2 protective face masks. One to protect you, one to protect some lucky person walking by. This is the main inventor, Dr. Elena Bodnar. This photo was taken at the Ig Nobel Prize ceremony. This was the first public demonstration. There's a lot of engineering in this thing. If you look in the patent, you'll see there's a lot more subtle engineering in this. For one, well, let me explain what she did at the ceremony. She gave a speech, and we keep the speeches really short. We keep most of the winners' speeches to about 1 minute. So she gave her speech. She was wearing a beautiful dress. You can't really tell in this photograph, a long, elegant dress. And then she reached inside her dress, pulled out her brassiere, separated it into 2 parts, and then she looked across the stage to where the Nobel Prize winners were sitting. Now I want you to realize, when I said we keep the winners secret, even the people who are going to shake their hands do not know who the winners are until that moment when we announce it. So we had, 8 or 9 Nobel Prize winners sitting there who had just 1 minute before learned that this exists. They'd seen this demonstration, and then they saw the inventor turn to them and say, "I need 3 volunteers to assist me." And that's what happened. You can see video of this on the internet. This is a different prize. The man in black is the Ig Nobel Prize winner here. He is the inventor of karaoke. Each prize has a category. He won the Ig Nobel Peace Prize. The reason he won the Peace Prize is that by inventing karaoke, he invented an entirely new way for people to learn to tolerate each other. Okay. Which I am told is a very Swiss concept. The three people in white coats are all Nobel Prize winners. So as soon as the winner, Daisuke Inoue is his name, as soon as he finished his 1-minute speech, he started to walk away. You can see that here. And then the three of them came up and put their arms around him, and they sang a karaoke tribute to the inventor of karaoke. The song they sang, you may recognize, an old song. It goes something like, "You're just too good to be true, can't take my eyes off of you." And everybody in the place, 1,100 people, leaped to their feet and started singing this karaoke tribute. This is a different prize. This is another study, you see. You can read the title for yourself, but I'll read it. It's called An Analysis of the Forces Required to Drag Sheep Over Various Surfaces. This was done by a team of scientists in Australia. And that's a picture of one of them dragging a sheep. This one always sticks in my mind for many reasons. When we choose somebody or when we choose a team to win the prize, in almost every case, we get in touch with them very quietly and we offer them the prize. If they want to say no, that's okay, and that's the end of it, and we never tell anybody. But almost everybody we offer a prize to says yes. When I called them, they knew about the prize. Several of them, in fact, knew a lot about the Ig Nobel Prize. They'd been reading about it in the news every year. But they never thought they would win one. And this prize stays in my mind because that telephone call where I offered them the prize, that was the first moment that any of them realized that what they did is funny. That's true of many of the Ig Nobel Prize winners. A similar thing, I heard two of the prize winners here discussing that same thing about their own work today. And if you think this is just something that happens to people who are very, very unusual and do unusual things, I think this kind of thing happens to just about everybody. I think everyone's life is filled with little tiny things that are ordinary to you. Think back to whatever you're doing now. If you're a student, think back to the first day you began school. Or if you work in a job, think back to the very first day and think about how strange all the little things were that you saw and the little things people did. And you probably went home that day and you had many, many stories about the weird stuff that happened. And then the next day you went to work or to school and you came home and you had some stories, but you did not have as many stories. And a week later you came home and you had no stories. Now you're used to it. And after a year, you're used to everything. And maybe once a year you get together with some family from far away at a Christmas party or something, and say your grandfather comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want to understand what you do. I really want to understand. Will you explain it to me in detail?" And you try, especially if you're a scientist, you try to explain it in detail. And you see the look on their face, and you realize these words coming out of your mouth make you sound like you're insane. But to you, it's ordinary, and everybody has stuff like that. This is another prize from about 25 years ago, I think. This went to the creator of a piece of software. This was the first computer program designed specifically to identify when a cat is walking on a computer keyboard. This is a penguin. The white stuff, you probably either know or you can guess what that is. It's excrement, that's penguin poo. We gave a prize to a team of scientists who did a calculation to figure out how much pressure must build up inside a penguin to make this happen. This is a different paper. This was done by two Norwegian scientists who study animals in the far north. You can see from the title here, it has to do with reindeer and polar bears and humans disguised as polar bears. They were trying to figure out what is going to happen in future years as the climate is changing, and there's more time when it's warm in the far north, and there's more time when there's no ice on the ground. And there are two especially big animals up there that these days still don't meet very often, reindeer and polar bears. So these scientists are wondering what's going to happen in the future when they meet more often. Well, it's hard to persuade a polar bear to cooperate in doing the research. So the best they could come up with was one of them disguised himself as a polar bear, and that's the best disguise they could come up with. And this is the last of the old prizes I want to show you. This is a patent from 1965. The inventors are George and Charlotte Blonsky, a married couple. They described this as a device to assist women in giving birth. This device consists of a large round table with some machinery attached. When the woman is ready to deliver her baby, she lies on the table on her back. They strap her down, and then the table is rotated at high speed, and the child comes flying out through centrifugal force. A couple of words about the Ig Nobel Prize ceremony. If you win an Ig Nobel Prize, you get an Ig Nobel Prize. It is a physical prize. The design is different every year. It's always made from extremely cheap materials, as you can see, and using the highest design principles. This was a photograph taken at the end of one of the ceremonies. Most of the people you see up there have Nobel Prizes, and they were the ones who were handing out the prizes that year. But the most important person is this person here, who's an 8-year-old girl, or at least she was at that time. She sits on the stage during the entire ceremony, and whenever she feels that somebody has talked long enough, she lets them know. So this I told you already that the winners, we tell them you get about 1 minute. At about that point, this little tiny girl, and she's always a little tiny girl, 8 years old, she stands up and she walks across the stage up to the person who's talking at the microphone, and she looks up at that person and she says, "Please stop, I'm bored. Please stop, I'm bored. Please stop, I'm bored. Please stop, I'm bored." She does not stop until they do. And it works. Each winner, although we don't really have any money, we found a way to give cash to each winner. So each winner, or at least each winning team, gets $10 trillion. A $10 trillion bill from Zimbabwe. Many of you know that the country of Zimbabwe had some adventures a few years ago with their currency, with massive inflation. The head of the national bank, Dr. Gideon Gano, started printing these bills, $10 trillion face value. At the same time the government was printing these, they were printing bills same size, almost the same appearance. The only thing different was the value printed on it. This one is $10 trillion. The other one had a face value of 1 cent. We gave Dr. Gideon Gano the Ig Nobel Prize for mathematics for that. And this is a look at the audience at Sanders Theater, where the ceremony is held. There's a long tradition that the audience invented, where a lot of people who come to be in the audience bring big stack of paper with them, which they use to make paper airplanes. And with that many people throwing paper airplanes, we need to have a couple of people whose entire job is to sweep the stage. Or else, seriously, we cannot walk on the stage with that much paper. All right, now a quick look at the most recent Ig Nobel Prize winners. They got their prize in September. And I'll mention that during these past 4 pandemic years, we were not able to do the ceremony in a theater with everybody together. So these past years, we did it a very different way. We did it entirely over the internet through a series of secret Zoom calls that we edited together. And you'll see the difference in some of the photos I show you. We gave an Ig Nobel Chemistry Prize, and before I tell you what it is, I'll mention categories. 10 prizes, each one has a category. Most prizes in the world that have several different prizes each year have the same categories each year. But that's not the way we do it. We pick the winners first, and then we try to figure out for each winner what category could possibly describe what this person did. The chemistry prize this year went to a geologist who explained why many scientists like to lick rocks. Okay. Are there some geologists here in the room together? Okay. Do you like to lick rocks? Could you, before I go into this, could you come up to the microphone here? Would you mind explaining, a microphone right here, and if you wouldn't, right here, and if you wouldn't mind explaining in about one sentence why you like to lick rocks?
Well, it's something we start very early in our studying already. It's something that starts, I think, in the first year, that we discover minerals, and the teacher tells us, and now you have to lick that one. And of course, it's to detect whether it's a salt or not, but we just get used to it. And we have a lot of field work, and when we go out on fieldwork, first there are two things we like to do. We like to hammer things, and we like to lick rocks. So basically, that's the two things. Oh yeah, we also like to put acids on them. And so you have this big bunch of people out in the mountain or somewhere, and they spend their time hammering stuff, licking rocks, and putting acid. And of course, we know that we should do it in the right order, because if you put acid and then you lick, you get into problems. So, and yes, I love to do it because I have nostalgia for those learning years, and it reminds me of what I've learned. I'm a sedimentologist, so I don't work with rocks really anymore.
Okay. I have... I now have so many questions I want to ask you, but maybe afterwards. Right. Right. So this winner, Jan Zalasiewicz, who is a geologist, he won an Ig Nobel Prize for explaining why many scientists, including this one, like to lick rocks. He published a paper, I've circled part where he explains it, and he has a different reason in addition to yours. He said that the basic thing for him was that you go out and you see a rock, you're not sure what it is when you first see it, and one of the first things you want to do is look at it in detail. Look at the surface, see if there are any patterns there that tell you what it might be. But if it's dry, if it's not wet, sometimes it's difficult to see patterns on the surface. If it's raining, it's great, you can see the patterns more easily. Well, what if it's not raining? You lick it. Okay. Well, I need to ask you one question. If you wouldn't mind coming back to the...
It's true. I forgot about...
No, don't answer the question until I ask it, please.
No, but I forgot about the fact that, yes, indeed, it's very important to lick rocks in order to see details.
Yeah, my question is, do you have a favorite rock? You can answer later if you like. I know you don't want to offend the other rocks.
Yes, too many loves.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, another thing he explains in this paper is he said that he and others have discovered that quite often you can tell whether something is a fossil or not by the taste, which has always been a difficult thing from what I understand. So here's the moment in the Zoom call when he's just been presented his Ig Nobel Prize. On the left, on these pictures I show you, will be the Nobel laureate who presents the prize. And on the right, well, you can see, he's demonstrating. And let me explain what we did too. The magical moments, again, the 10 most magic moments are the moment when a Nobel Prize winner physically hands this Ig Nobel Prize to the Ig Nobel winner. When we couldn't do this with the 2 of them or the 10 of them being in the same room. Sometimes it's a team of winners. We still wanted to have that happen somehow. So we invented a way that you can physically pass, a physical object through the internet to somebody who is on the other side of the world. And what we did was the design the past 4 years when we have the ceremony this way is a design on paper with lines and instructions that you cut it out and you fold it and you glue it and you've got your 3-dimensional prize. We put that with the instructions into a PDF document. We emailed that PDF to everybody who would be involved in the call. They made their own prizes. And then the Nobel laureate would hold up the prize to the camera, say, "Congratulations," or whatever they want to say, and then look to the side and push it off outside the edge of the screen. The winner would look out that way, reach out beyond the edge of the screen and pull in the prize. And that's how we send 3-dimensional objects through the internet. We gave a literature prize to a team that studied the sensations people feel when they repeat a single word many, 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 many times. One of the team members is here with us tonight. You'll hear from him a bit later. But right now, let me just ask Chris Moulin to stand and take a bow. That's their paper. You'll hear more about it. This is what it looked like when they got their prize. You see it's a different design for the prize this past year. We gave a prize in the field of mechanical engineering. It went to a team who reanimated dead spiders to use them as mechanical gripping tools. This is their paper. They invented a new word to describe this field that they invented, necrobotics. These are some details. Okay. And I'm guessing that there are maybe a few biologists in the room who know a lot about spiders and the way spiders' bodies work, but I'm guessing that nobody else does. And among the other things you'll learn if you start reading about this is why when a spider dies, probably every dead spider you've ever seen has always had its legs curled up. There's a reason for that. And that reason led them partly to think of doing this and made it possible. And it involves hydraulics. And I won't tell you any more. And here are the 2 main members of the team. The person holding the prize is the grad student who came up with this idea. And this is the team leader who's a little bit frightened of spiders, but was good about taking one for the team, I guess you would say. And this is Barry Sharpless, who has a Nobel Prize in chemistry. He's been handing out Ig Nobel Prizes for several years. I think it was the year before this he handed out one of the prizes. And then a few weeks later, it was announced that he, Barry Sharpless, had won a second Nobel Prize in chemistry. Not because he was doing this, for something else. We gave a prize in the field of public health. It went to Dr. Sung-Min Park for inventing the Stanford toilet. It's called that because he was at Stanford University in the US when he did this. The Stanford toilet is a device that uses a variety of different technologies. These include a urinalysis dipstick test strip, a computer vision system for defecation analysis, an anal print sensor. Isn't that a strange phrase? An anal print sensor paired with an identification camera, a video camera, and a telecommunications link. All of this to monitor and quickly analyze the substances that humans excrete. What they're trying to do in this is to identify for individuals diseases and injuries even before the person realizes there's a problem. Now, there's a certain difficulty that they're wrestling with involving privacy, but the inventor is well aware of that. There's a whole series of papers that were written on this. This one's called A Mountable Toilet System for Personalized Health Monitoring via the Analysis of Excreta. And here's a little bit of detail from that. Several manufacturing companies have been in touch with him to discuss the possibility of marketing these things. And here's the inventor. And here's the moment when he was about to receive his Ig Nobel Prize. We gave a prize in the field of communication. Went to a large team from Argentina and Spain. They won the prize for studying the mental activities, the brain activity of people who are expert at speaking backward. This is the paper they wrote about it. Neurocognitive signatures of phonemic sequencing in expert backward speakers. There are at least 2 villages, one in Spain, one in Argentina, where when people are young, they learn how to speak backwards. And it becomes like a secret language that people outside the village cannot understand. And from what the researchers say, the people who live there are really skilled at having entire conversations speaking backward. And here is the moment when the prize is about to be presented, Nobel laureate on the left, and 2 of the team members on the right. Okay. And they were in 3 different continents. The Ig Nobel Prize in Medicine this year went to a large team of doctors who used cadavers, they used dead bodies to explore whether there is an equal number of hairs in each of a person's 2 nostrils. Here's the paper they wrote about measurement and quantification of cadaveric nasal hairs. You might spend a couple moments asking yourself, if you were going to try to measure this, how would you do it? And you probably will pretty quickly realize why they chose to do it on dead bodies rather than living bodies. And here's most of the team just having received the prize moments before. The reason that they did this is they're dermatologists. They study the skin, problems of the human skin. They had a patient who has a disease called alopecia, which means that there are large parts of the body with no hair whatsoever. And they noticed in this patient there were no hairs inside the nose. And they weren't sure whether this was just a symptom that did not matter, or maybe this was a further medical fact that indicated something really bad. So they went and they did searching through the medical literature, through all of history, and they could not find anything. They found nothing which talked about the medical function of nasal hairs. And they found the same amount, nothing saying how many nasal hairs a typical person has. So now they were getting kind of worried. So they decided to find out how many hairs does a person have. And that's why they did this. Would you like to know the typical number they found? Okay. First of all, is there anyone here who does know how many hairs you have? In either nostril, I don't care which. No. They say that in most of the noses they looked in, each nostril had roughly about 100 hairs. And it was about the same in both nostrils. We gave a prize in the field of nutrition to 2 scientists in Japan who did some experiments to determine how electrified chopsticks, this is chopsticks with electricity provided, and electrified drinking straws can change the taste of food. This is their paper called Augmented Gustation Using Electricity. Gustation is an elaborate word meaning eating. This is some detail from it. The main thing that they found in this was by passing a very small amount of electricity through a person's tongue, they can make something taste much more salty. And so they're saying one of the uses that they think this will have is on people who have a medical problem where they are not supposed to eat much salt in their diet. Now they can eat food that has very little taste But if they just do it with these chopsticks, or they also have other eating instruments, suddenly it's really tasty, really salty. So here they are getting their prize. And one of them, the scientist on the right, has invented many other things too. I'll show you just one. Okay. He said he's found a way to transmit the taste of food through a television screen. We gave a prize in the field of education. Went to a large team based in Hong Kong. They methodically studied the boredom of teachers and students. And that's why they won their Ig Nobel Prize. They published 2 papers on this. One of them is called Boredom Begets Boredom, an experience sampling study on the impact of teacher boredom on student boredom and motivation. What they say they found was if the teacher is bored by the subject, most of the students almost certainly will be bored. The other paper, different title, Whatever Will Bore, Will Bore. The mere anticipation of boredom exacerbates its occurrence in lectures. What they say they found in the second paper was if the students even think that it might be boring, then they'll be bored. So, but you may have your own experience in these things. So here's part of the team getting their prize, and unfortunately, Marty Chalfie, the Nobel laureate presenting the prize, was kind of bored while he was doing it. We gave a prize in the field of psychology, so this is the 9th of the 10 prizes. The psychology prize was given to a team of 3 people for work they did long, long ago, in the 1960s. Only one of them is still alive, so he collected the prize. That first name may be familiar to anyone who's a psychologist, Stanley Milgram. I won't go into it now, but you might want to ask, if you're not familiar with that name, you might want to ask about that name. He did a very different experiment, very, very famous. This one, though, that won the prize, they did on a city street. In fact, they did it on a city street in New York City to see how many people walking by on the sidewalk would stop to look upward when they saw strangers looking upward. This is their paper called A Note on the Drawing Power of Crowds of Different Size. Here's some data plotted. And what they say they found was if you have 1 or 2 people looking up, most people will just walk by. But if you have even a small group, say 10 or 15 people, a lot of people will stop and look up. You can try this yourself. And here is the winner, who's just gotten his $10 trillion bill. He printed out we do the same thing with the $10 trillion bill. We send it through the internet. He printed his in a large size, further kind of inflation. And the final prize we gave was in physics, went to a large team of researchers for measuring the extent to which ocean water mixing is affected by the sexual activity of anchovies. We have a member of the team here. Okay. Daniel Bouffard, would you mind taking a bow? You'll get to hear the details straight from the person who did much of the work and who also is a graduate of EPFL. This is their paper, and you'll see more when Daniel tells. And I have only one other thing to show you before we get to the talks by the winners. It's a little piece of video from one of the Ig Nobel Prize ceremonies. The ceremonies include a lot of other things beside the announcement of the prizes. The prizes are the important part, but between the 10 announcements, we do other things. One of the things we do every year is we write a short opera about something in science. Funny, I hope. And it's performed by professional opera singers and by the Nobel laureates who don't have a singing part, they just have an acting part. This particular song I'm going to show you was the final song of one of the operas. It was the thrilling conclusion. And the song was based on a piece of scientific research that won an Ig Nobel Prize, which I'll tell you about. This was a prize we gave in the year 2000. The authors are called Dunning and Kruger, David Dunning, Justin Kruger. This paper became really famous in psychology and even beyond. What they describe here is known around the world as the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect, named after the authors. And the paper is called Unskilled and Unaware of It: How Difficulties in Recognizing One's Own Incompetence Lead to Inflated Self-Assessments. Let me read that again. Unskilled and unaware of it: how difficulties in recognizing one's own incompetence lead to inflated self-assessments. Now that you know about the Dunning-Kruger effect, in this song, it's an opera. It has a plot that's kind of silly, but you don't really need to know the plot. All you need to know is what happens here. The main singer here, the character, is a professional psychologist. He walks into a bar. He's a stranger. He does not know anybody in this bar. Nobody in the bar knows him. So he's very important, apparently, as you'll see. This psychologist walks into a bar and decides he's going to explain to everybody here the Dunning-Kruger effect. He's going to make sure everybody in this bar understands the Dunning-Kruger effect. So you'll see him, and you'll also see the customers in the bar and how they react, and you'll see the people who work in the bar and how they react.
Psychologists have shown that people unskilled at something somehow do not know their own incompetence. No! Incompetence. Some people's own incompetence somehow gives them a stupid sense that anything they do is first rate. They think it's great. But no, it's not. The research clearly shows such people's perceptions as a distraction.
So you got a little opera tonight, along with everything else. All right. Well, as I think you know, this is part of the Ig Nobel EuroTour that's starting up again, and there's 1 week left. We're going to be doing a bunch of shows this coming weekend at the Rome Science Festival. So if you know anybody there, you might suggest they come along. There are no tickets left, but they'll have fun standing outside the building, wishing they could come inside. And this fall, I'm really, really happy to be able to announce that this year we are going to return to the traditional way of doing the ceremony, everybody inside one big room together for the first time since, 2019. So that's going to be on Thursday, September 12th. It will be webcast live. I hope you'll watch. It will start at 6 o'clock in the evening on the east coast of the US, and that's midnight here. So you might want to think about having a midnight watch party for that. And who knows, maybe somebody in this room will be getting a prize. And the last thing I want to show you is just my magazine. This magazine is filled with things like that. The world is filled with things like that, especially the whole world of science going way, way back. And one of the nice things that's happened to us and to me over these many years is people every day from around the world send us things they discover that have this quality of making them laugh and then think. And the best of those things we write up in the magazine. And some things will become Ig Nobel Prize winners. Not necessarily things that appear in the magazine, not necessarily not. So that's that. And now we are going to hear from our 3 Ig Nobel Prize winners. Each of them will have 10 minutes to describe what they did. We'll all get together at the end and take questions. We want to assist them. We want to, all of us, assist them in making sure their speech lasts no longer than 10 minutes. And so to help all of us, but especially to help the winners, we have with us tonight 3 bananas. And this is... So this is how it's going to work. Again, each speaker will have a total of 10 minutes. At the halfway point, at the midway point, at 5 minutes, this is what the bananas will do. That is how we will all know this lecture is halfway done. Okay, again, 10 minutes total. When there's only 1 minute left, at the 9-minute mark, when the speaker is here doing the talk, the speaker will continue, give the last minute, we hope, of the talk, and this is what the bananas will do. The speaker will just go on talking and give you all the information that the speaker has come here to tell you. You can go a little faster in this demonstration, that's okay. And at the 10-minute mark, they will reach this point. Thank you, bananas. Wonderfully done. Our first speaker is Chris Moulin. You've seen Chris take a bow. Chris and his team did the work with repetition of words. And now he'll tell you all about it. Chris?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. It was a surprise to win the prize. I do some pretty silly things, but I wasn't expecting that it was that silly. So I'll start with a question. Who here has had the experience of déjà vu at least once in their life? Okay, that's good. That's most people. That's good. It's correlated with intelligence, so that's That's nice to see. So I've done a lot of work on déjà vu. Who here has had déjà vu in the last week? Yeah, not many people. It's really rare, and I have to spend a lot of time waiting around for people to have déjà vu. And I got extremely bored waiting around for people to have déjà vu, so I started research on something that seems a bit more easy to provoke in people, which is jamais vu. So what is jamais vu? With a French crowd, tough, because you all speak French, you know that jamais vu isn't like about jam or something like that. Jamais vu is the opposite. It's a scientific concept. There's much less work on jamais vu than déjà vu, but it's a scientific concept. And it is essentially the opposite insofar as you know that something is familiar, and yet you feel it's strange in some way. So you know you're looking at your father's face, but it doesn't look right, or is that really my father? I've had it looking at my own face. Who, is that me? Do I really go round, is that me? I know it's me, but it doesn't look like it's me. So maybe you've had that experience, I'm really hoping, otherwise you're thinking I'm pretty strange. But I'm betting you've had it with words, and my research is on words, and I've done some work where I've asked people to repeat words over and over again, and it makes them feel pretty strange. So, about me, I am a professor. I find that more surprising than I got the Ig Nobel Award. I am a professor of cognitive psychology in France. I am British. And my day job is to look at fairly serious things like Alzheimer's disease and memory problems in Alzheimer's disease. And déjà vu has become a bit my day job as well, but my night job, by night, I am transformed into a jamais vu researcher, which involves things like sitting on a train, because I work a lot on trains, I work better on trains than anywhere else, programming experiments where I show people the same word over and over again. And I've noticed I do my programming like that, and I'm looking at it, and I flash the word monkey 30 times, like this saying monkey, 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 and then it stops, and I tweak a little bit of the coding, and then I put it on again, it goes monkey, 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 and I've noticed there's never anybody sat next to me. They sit there for a little bit, and then they're gone. So, you have an idea about me. What did I do? All I did was I asked people to write words repeatedly until they felt strange. And I wanted a way of inducing that kind of strangeness that you get in déjà vu, that you get in jamais vu. And that's basically it. Here's a graph to make me look like a scientist. But the main finding is, it's not just me. If I make you write words, it will make you feel strange. So we found that about 75% of people reported something like peculiarity, and they said it was like something like that they'd experienced in daily life. So we could fairly reliably induce this. And here's some quotes. The words lose their meaning the more you look at them. They just seem like a string of letters instead of a whole word. I know it's familiar, but it looks strange. That's pretty much the definition in science for the idea, and that's what people are saying to us. And this is my favorite. It doesn't seem right. Almost looks like it's not really a word, but someone's tricked me into thinking it is. That's like they've gone backwards on it, and it's me. I've tricked them into thinking it's a word. And that's what people think of psychologists really. That's the sad thing. So then, one of the things when you find something striking and strange is you should really replicate your work. So we replicated it, and we did a second study. This time, we asked people to just repeat one word. And the word that they had to choose was the. So they wrote the word the over and over and over again. And the reason we chose the word the is it's the most common word in the English language. And we just figured that the more familiar you are with the word, the more it would induce this feeling of jamais vu. And it was the case. we got 55% of people, but they only did it for this one word. In the previous experiment, we did it with a whole load of words. And it took about 28 repetitions with a standard deviation of 14 to get the strangeness. So, no, that isn't funny. That's the normal distribution. You'll laugh at anything. So here's some more graphy stuff. People are saying, look, I knew it was right, but I knew it was spelt right, but it seemed like it was wrong. My handwriting looked strange. It didn't feel real. Just remember, it's the word "the" that they're writing over and over again. And again, I forgot the meaning. Well, as my son pointed out to me on the way here, what is the meaning of "the"? It doesn't really have a meaning, but they say it lost its meaning. Oh, I seem to lose control of my hand. Anyway. How did I think of this experiment? Well, it goes back to my childhood. When I wasn't very good at school, I got a punishment that you may have had to do. I don't know if anybody still does this, but I had to write the same thing over and over again. I think I was about 12. And I noticed that writing these lines over and over again, the words began to seem very, very strange. And it got to be a very kind of strange task. And many years later, when I was doing this research on déjà vu and I wanted to switch to something more easy to provoke in the laboratory, that's when I remembered this experience, which was for me a formative kind of experience. If you're a psychologist like that, that's kind of your material. You want to think, well, why does that feel strange? So it was kind of a bet, because again, the first thing is to say to other people, like, do you feel weird when you repeat a word? Or is it just me? And then you do a whole experiment and there's a room full of people who feel weird. That's really kind of reassuring. The best thing about the paper is, for me, the title. The first draft, I said 28 with a standard deviation of 14. The first draft had 28 "thes." But it was a bit much for the publishers, so we reduced it to 4. Even so, when I corrected the proofs for this scientific article, they sent it back. I think there's a problem in the title. No, there's not a problem in the title. That's really what it's supposed to be. And then they sent it back again. No, we really think there's something wrong in the title. My students who cite this paper, the people who are examining their work often say things like, the typos are terrible. There's the word "the" repeated 4 times in the references. But so why does this happen? Quickly, because I fear a banana attack. Quickly, this happens because there's a whole bunch of automatic processes in the brain which are called metacognition, and that's really my day job. And metacognition is that little voice you hear when you can't remember a word. You're watching a film and there's a famous actor in it, and you know this actor. Now, what's that actor's name? And there's that little voice that goes, I know the name of the actor, but you don't. And that voice is yourself looking at your own performance, and that's the word on the tip of the tongue. And that's a very exciting experience because it shows these 2 levels of kind of consciousness, a conflict. One of the ideas is that you are aware of something happening. So you're aware that you know the word, but yet there's another part of you that's saying you haven't got the word. The word's not there. So it's this conflict between 2 evaluations, which is very interesting in my research. And that happens in déjà vu, like it happens in jamais vu. In déjà vu, you have this conflict that you know it's impossible that this event has happened before, and yet you feel like it has. And then the most important question in science is, so what? And so what is a way of looking at all kinds of things like consciousness and various forms of pathology, but maybe I should just talk about that in questions.
Beautiful. Chris Moulin. Again, we will take questions at the very end. Our next speaker is, well, you've met all three of them briefly. Our next speaker is a key member of the team that did that research involving the sexual effects of having large numbers of very small fish in the same place who get excited. Please welcome Daniel Bouffard. Voila, right.
Thank you, Marc. But wait.
Ah.
I think you really deserve a prize. You deserve the prize for the best title in a scientific journal. So now our work is basically known as measuring the extent to which ocean water mixing is affected by the sexual activities of anchovies. Thanks a lot. This is a very clear title, and we like it.
That's not the actual title of the paper. That's the title of the citation for the Ig Nobel Prize.
Yeah, but I think it is now known like this. And yes,
you're welcome.
We are boring scientists, and that was actually the title that we chose back in time.
Good job, guys.
So this is me. And you see that I'm in the middle of this list of authors. So I'm basically the co-author of this study. And I guess you have been following the previous talk, so I think you know what I feel at this moment. Thanks, Chris. But actually, I'm not the most important person. The most important person today is Bieto Fernandez Castro, who was the lead author of this study. And today, I will be just the spokesman of Bieto Fernandez Castro and all the team. But with Bieto, we share one thing. We basically like to measure turbulence in lakes and in ocean. And we like to do that for many reasons, and I would like to explain you why we like to do that, because we think that this is important. At global scale, basically, we have the thermohaline circulation, and this oceanic thermohaline circulation is basically modulated by the intensity of the turbulence and the efficiency of the mixing that we have in the deep water. So that's why we like to measure turbulence and to get an estimate of the efficiency of the mixing. That's at very large scale. We also believe that measuring turbulence and mixing is important for basically getting a sense of life in the ocean and also in lakes. And I will give you a very, very simple recipe to try to promote the primary production, so basically the very beginning of the food web, the growth of phytoplankton. So in a very, very simple recipe, what we need is light, and we get it at the top, at the surface layer, and we need a little bit of nutrient. The problem is that the nutrients are mostly at depth. And in a recipe, we need to put together the ingredient. And this is what we can do with turbulence. Basically, we can increase the vertical flux that will move up the nutrient, and then we will have all the nutrient and the light together, and we can promote some algae growth. This is what we see here. And this was basically the beginning of the study I would like to tell you about today. We are in the northwest of Spain, in Galicia, close to Vigo, and basically a team was interested in looking at estimating the vertical fluxes, looking at turbulences, to look at the growth of algae. Why they did that? Basically, there was also a fundamental reason, an economical reason, sorry, because at this place there is a lot of economical activities due to mussel growing. And what we do not want is to have algae grow that will basically threaten this economical activity. So for this, Bieto was on the boat and measuring during days and days the level of turbulence to get an idea of the vertical fluxes. he was doing that one run after the other. So basically, you drop a microstructure profiler, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. And that's the way we like to show the result in terms of turbulence in the water column. And basically, we are happy when we see that there is some dark color, so basically a lot of turbulence close to the surface, and less turbulence at depth. And that's during the day. And that's typically what we do. But the problem was that Bieto was a very passionate scientist. And he was not only working during daytime, he also was interested in measuring also what's going on at night. So he was also taking some measurement at night, and that's when the problem started for us, because we could not understand what happened at night. And basically, that's exactly what you see. At night, we systematically saw an increase in turbulence in the water column, and we could not explain that based on the classical geophysical processes, wind, convection, and so on, that we had in mind. So it was very nice, but also very intriguing, like now. Hopefully, it was a large boat, and on this boat, another team was basically looking at fishes, basically looking at echo-sounding profile, the data from echo-sounder, and that's what you see here with the backscatter signal. And every night, they were also seeing an increase in the backscatter signal due to the aggregation of fishes close to the surface. And that was quite interesting. In the end, we could really correlate the level of turbulence at night with basically an increase in the acoustic echo. So basically some fish activities. So that was already, for us, that was fantastic already. We were ready to publish that. But then we realized that there was maybe some missing information. We had still no clue on what was going on at night underneath the boat. Hopefully, some people took some net, mostly used for zooplankton most of the time, but basically they look at what is in the water during the night. And what they found is they found some anchovy egg. And actually, not a single one, not a few, but many, many, many anchovy eggs at night. And that's how we could put everything together, and we could conclude that basically the elevated level of turbulence at night was due to the sexual activities of anchovies. But today, I think we can do better. I think we have to wait for the next talk, and maybe we will be able to get the psychological profile of such a late sleeping anchovies. Thank you, Minna. Okay, but I'm still a bit boring. So I was talking about turbulence, and now we know that basically we have an increase of turbulence due to the activities of fishes. But the point was to look at basically if those fishes can actually increase the mixing, to do some biomixing. And there is a huge debate. Well, cool down, this is a huge debate in the scientific community. And the point is, some scientists are saying that no, this is not possible because the fish are too small and they cannot mix basically the water column, which is weakly stratified. And this is right. Actually, to say that differently, basically the length scale of the eddies that are provided by the fishes will be always very small compared to basically the characteristic length scale linked to basically the stratification. And this is true for the open ocean. So how come we see some turbulence and we could see some mixing? The thing is, we were actually measuring close to the shore in Vigo, where basically there is quite often an upwelling, which is squeezing the isotherm, squeezing the stratification, the distance between two isotherms. And so the characteristic length scale for the stratification was shrinking, was smaller and smaller. And at some point, we are in a situation where basically the characteristic length scale for the stratification is of same order than the characteristic of the energy that is provided by the fishes. And this is the condition which is perfect for boosting the efficiency of the mixing. And that's why, basically, we were finding a hotspot for mixing due to fishes' activities. So in the end, this was not a question of size and the size of fishes, obviously, but it was a question of matching size between the size of the fishes, the size of the energy provided by the fishes, and the characteristic length scale of the stratification. So, as a very short conclusion, what we could show is basically we could provide some insight on the fact that yes, it is possible to have some biomixing due to fishes' activities in some places of the ocean. But we could also show basically why there was such a mixing. And actually, this was already expressed by a famous French singer a while ago. And this guy was basically singing that basically the sea is really disgusting because fishes are having sex on it. And I think that's what we showed in this study. Thank you.
Très bon. Daniel Bouffard. Our final speaker did research with her team about night owls and people who get up early, early birds, and their personalities. And I'm very glad she could travel all the way from Liverpool, England, to be with us tonight. I have the right thing here? Yes. Please welcome Minna Lyons.
Hello, everybody. I just realized that it is actually the 10th anniversary of our Ig Nobel Prize. And I must say that it is the most important thing that has happened during my academic career. It's a very, very important prize that all of my colleagues are extremely jealous about. And I did get a little bit of fame, at least 15 minutes of fame with this prize too, because I'm from a small country, or country with a small population number, in Northern Europe called Finland. And there are only 5.5 million people in this whole country. So if anybody who is from Finland does something that brings a little bit fame to the country, it's always a big deal. So I was in the news, I had interviews in the newspapers, and my then 92-year-old grandmother was reading my interview, and she thought that I actually won a Nobel Prize. And she's now 102 years old, and she still thinks that her granddaughter is a Nobel winner. So maybe there's some kind of a correlation between longevity and thinking that your grandchild is a Nobelist. So I think I'm first going to talk about the study and why we did it. But before I start, I'd like to learn a little bit about you guys in the audience. Do we have any night owls in the audience? Put your hand up if you like to stay up late. Quite a few. Do we have any psychopaths in the audience? Put your hand up if you are a psychopath. There's always a few, always. Actually, in an audience of this size, there probably should be around 7 psychopaths. So there are people who are lying here. But as this little demonstration shows, not everybody who is a night owl is a psychopath. and not everybody who is a psychopath is a night owl. So this is basically our results in a really brief summary. So, I don't know if anybody's seen this film Nightcrawler. It came out after we did our research, but it tells about this quite sinister character who does evil things in the nighttime. And this is what we were interested in. We were interested in looking at personality profiles of people who stay up late. And it all started with this brilliant student called Amy Jones. Amy was an undergraduate dissertation student of mine. And we had brainstorming sessions thinking about what kind of research she would like to do. And as a psychology student, she was a keen observer of humans. And she went clubbing in Liverpool, UK, quite a lot, so she was familiar with the nightlife. And she was saying to me that often at the end of the night, there are these quite sinister looking characters lurking around the nightclubs, trying to exploit others. And then we were thinking that could it be that this exploitativeness goes together with a profile of being somebody who stays up late, a night owl. So we were interested in looking at morningness, eveningness. It's also called chronotypes. It's quite a stable trait within a person. So it normally starts quite early in life as a child. We have tendencies to stay up late or go to bed early. And there are some changes in these habits, and you can train yourself to be more of a morning or more of an evening person, but they still seem to be quite stable, partially genetically determined, but there's a lot of environmental influences as well. So we gave participants an online questionnaire which had questions about their sleeping habits. Questions like, if you got into bed at 11 p.m., how tired would you be? And higher scores in this questionnaire indicated that the person has got more morning tendencies, and a lower score means that they have got more evening tendencies. Then the personality profiles that we were interested in were the dark triad of personality, which consists of psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. And psychopathy is about being quite callous, unemotional, impulsive, and it's measured with agreement to questions like, I'm more tough-minded than other people, or I have attacked someone with the idea of injuring them. Narcissism consists of many different things, but one of them is entitlement and exploitativeness, which is measured by questions such as, I will never be satisfied until I get all that I deserve, or I am an extraordinary person. Machiavellianism is personality traits related to manipulation and scheming, and almost like a political ability to read people and behave accordingly so that the person always gets benefits to themselves. And it's measured with questions such as, never tell anyone the real reason you did something unless it's useful to do so. So, what kind of a person would actually agree to, I have attacked someone with the idea of injuring them? So I found a few poster boys for these statements. Or what kind of a person would say, I am an extraordinary person? So then, this is actually what our findings were. So it was a correlational study, and we found a correlation between evening tendencies and Machiavellianism, exploitativeness facet of narcissism, and psychopathy as well. So small correlations. I'm not making a big song and dance about them, but there still seems to be some kind of trends in people who are more nighttime people have got the tendency to be more manipulative and psychopathic. But yeah, correlational study. And then what did I do then? Oh my God, I went into this black hole of finding information about our poster boys, and I found an article on the Independent newspaper about Putin, where they were describing how he is a night owl. And then I found out about this guy here, and actually maybe these are the people who are potentially the ones to watch out for, the people who don't sleep at all. So Donald Trump apparently only sleeps a few hours a night. And I also found a research paper that looked at Donald Trump's timing of tweeting activities when he still was on Twitter. And this paper showed that if he stayed on Twitter later at night, the next morning his speeches contained more anger. So he was angrier the next day. So maybe there is something in this idea that staying up late somehow affects individuals' next day's tendencies. If anybody has a burning desire, I'm not sure if many of you have, to read the paper. It was published in 2013 in Personality and Individual Differences in collaboration with Amy, whose idea the study was, and a colleague who was at the time at the University of Western Sydney. So, conclusion, I mean, so what? And my conclusion is an incomplete horse. Because we know actually quite a lot about chronotypes, and we know quite a lot about the dark triad of personality. So there's quite a complete picture on these topics. But then we don't really know this side of the horse. Like it's really incomplete. Because the studies that have been done are mostly correlational. And of course, as we all know, correlation does not imply causation. So does it actually mean that if you make somebody stay up late, does that make them more psychopathic? Or is it that individuals who are more psychopathic are more likely to stay up late? So what we need is actually more studies with better methodologies. I'm always the first one to critique my own research because they are just small correlational studies with zero budgets, often done with my undergraduate students. So yeah, that's the conclusion, which is actually a no conclusion. There isn't much of a conclusion here with the bananas. Thank you.
Minna, Lyons. Now we'll take a few questions if you have them, and then after that we'll have a final word from Chris Moulin. You may want to think about what that word might be. If you have a question for anybody, remember that this is being webcast, and so that people who are watching will be able to hear. Please go to one of the microphones. There's a microphone here, and there's a microphone over there. So if you have a question, just go over to the microphones, please.
Okay, I have a question. So for the first speaker, what is the process with people that don't finish their sentences?
Chris?
What can I say? When we never get to the end. Actually, so in our experiment, we actually did that. We asked people to stop when they started feeling strange. And then we thought, well, no, that's too much. So to control for them just doing what I tell them to do, we said they could stop for any reason. So people tend to stop also because they get bored. Or sometimes because their hand hurts. But yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Just walk up to one of the microphones. In fact, if you have no question, walk up to one of the microphones and walk back, just like a banana.
I have a question for Chris Moulin. So, because when I was in primary school, I often have to like copy a word many times for like 50 times or so, but I never had the feeling of I don't really know the word. Does it have to do have something to do with maybe I don't really know that word that well, or maybe because I'm not using my mind when I'm copying it?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I'm going to give a very serious answer because so if you look at déjà vu, for instance, you don't start getting déjà vu until you're about 10 years old, and some people until they're about 14 years old. So we think that when you're a child, you're not actually capable of experiencing that weirdness because you don't generate the conflict. So it is a bit like you say that, yeah, you just write a word and there's no part of you that's saying, that's a bit weird. You're just doing it, and you're just doing that. And so that would correlate with the idea that you don't get déjà vu till you're older, but you don't get also the word on the tip of the tongue. You don't get that until you're of a certain age either. So you need to have that kind of that reflective capacity to know what that's doing. But that would depend whether you now get jamais vu or not. If you did it now, do you think you would get it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I shall publish. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the talk. I also have a question about jamais vu. So I have same experience with Chinese because I come from China. So do you think it's like language dependent, there can be an awesome language that is jamais vu free, or it's a more universal phenomenon?
Yeah, good question. So we really, really want to know that it's universal. So there has been some research published on with a Chinese group who've repeated. They haven't asked people to write, but they've repeatedly presented words, and they get similar effects. They get the same effect that they lose their meaning. So it does seem to happen with Chinese written characters. But I think that's just a really good research question, that we'd want to do it with lots of different cultures and languages and people to show that it is a universal. I think it is a universal, but I think it's also something that's so strange, with such a strange label, that not everybody knows that they're experiencing it, and not everybody knows how to articulate what they're feeling.
Okay, thank you.
So hi, I am a night owl, but not yet a sociopath, I think. I have a question for Minna. So our entire society, our system, is designed for morning people, by morning people. So all night owls are constantly sleep deprived because of the system. So do you think this is something inherent to us being night owls, or is it just because we cannot cope anymore with what we're being imposed?
I think the diversity of night owls and morning people, and it's fabulous, and the system is designed for irritating morning people who get up early and do their business, and then in the nighttime, the night owls don't really get a chance to participate in the society that much. So could it actually, now I just thought, maybe could that be related to then the psychopathy aspects, because it's kind of like pushing people to the outskirts of the society, because they actually, could actually being an evening person because of the society make people more psychopathic. So I think you just came up with a research question that should be empirically studied.
It's their
Great
fault.
idea.
Thank you.
No, it hasn't been studied, but yeah, good idea.
Hi, I have a question for you as well. Did you also take the test, and have you changed your schedule because of the results you got?
I think that would be an interesting thing to do, changing schedules and then looking at whether psychopathy scores are changing with the changing schedules. And that's why we have to get away from the correlational studies and actually start doing more experimental research on that as well. I'm just thinking of myself. So I used to be a morning person, but now my schedule is more later at night. I wonder if I'm more psychopathic. I don't know, maybe I should test myself to begin with. But that's a great question for future research.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We'll take a question from here and then back there.
Hi, thank you so much. I actually have a question for you, Marc Abrahams. What prompted you to select the Don't Look Up experiment from Milgram and colleagues to have a psychology prize in 2023? And more generally, like, how come you look back in time so far to select Ig Nobel Prizes?
I'm sorry, this is the looking up experiment you're asking about?
Yes.
There are so many things going back way back in time. I'll answer this in quick pieces. One is, how far back do we go? Even if the people who did it are no longer alive, if there's somebody still living who worked with them or knew them very well, a family member, then we will still give a prize. So we've gone back as far as maybe 60 or 70 years that way. As to why we chose them, there are so many deserving things and people in the world that there's no rational formula for how we pick. We have all these things and then we argue. There are about 100 people involved worldwide in many small discussions over the course of the year in this. Basically, our technique is we argue. That's it.
I'll do that too, thanks.
Yeah, so good luck on yours, yes.
I have a question about latitude, because if you are in Finland, you go very long night on very long days. You are more psychopath in Finland than you go in the equator, for example?
That's a good question. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. Anybody got any ideas?
Okay, well, thank you.
Great idea.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take 2 more questions.
Hey, thanks for tonight. This question is for like any of the 3 of you that wants to answer. I was just wondering, did this research on the specific topics you won the prizes for change the way you do research outside? Like, did it, maybe you noticed something by considering these specific topics that you should do more of in your other research, or maybe the opposite, I don't know. Just, yeah, I was curious. And I hope other people are too.
Yeah, can we start with Daniel?
No. No, but I really like that basically this research was selected, so the research that I was presenting, because what I found interesting also in this research is that it was fundamentally interdisciplinary. So basically the main author, Bieto, was asking different co-authors, so colleagues, okay, this I do not know, can you help me with this, and so on. And I think this is the way we should do more science, not being in our own niche, but trying always to meet other scientists, to discuss with other scientists, to question things, and so on. So in that sense, yes, but related to the price, I would say no, not for me at least.
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure how to answer. I'm just like yes and no. So in a way, it has made me quite critical of my own research. And also, I've started valuing other methodologies, not just correlational questionnaire studies. So I've started doing more qualitative research, trying to get more deeper into what's actually happening in the human mind. And because I have always had teaching-intensive posts, so I've always had very little time for research. So I'm doing most of my research with undergraduate dissertation students. So then I think I've been working with them to try to encourage like this creativity and flow of ideas with students so that they could do whatever they find interesting to do, basically. But yeah, yes and no.
Yeah. Chris?
We shall see. I've applied now for funding with, like, the first thing I've written is I won the Ig Nobel Prize for Literature. Because, as you can imagine, my research on jamais vu and déjà vu is unfunded. It is like a hobby that I do in the context of a very supportive university and laboratory and a great team, but it's not something that attracts funding. So I'd like to think that maybe we could, the sky's the limit with jamais vu. But perhaps even more seriously, one of the things that's amazing, and Marc gave this presentation, we met those guys, so we've exchanged with those people. I've exchanged with a Nobel Prize winner about my research, and I think that's the major opportunity, and even to come here and to present to you guys. That's the thing that's been really good. So I don't know whether it'll change my research, but it's certainly changed my academic life, at least temporarily, or maybe for 10 years. That would be great as well. So I'm very grateful to Marc for that.
Okay, and one last question.
So I feel bad asking this question because the last one was a really good closing question. But I want to know about the anchovies.
I'm really happy you asked that. I was standing here thinking, this whole room full of people and nobody dares to ask about how anchovies have sex.
Yeah. I dare to ask about anchovies having sex. Actually, I want to know, do we know whether the size of the anchovy varies with the size or the compression of the stratification of the water column? So is there like an evolutionary process that makes the anchovies just the right size to mix their sperm and eggs properly across the columns? that would be the question.
Thanks a lot for your question.
Thanks.
I don't know. I don't think so. But I think this is also the beauty of this kind of event. I think this is also a fantastic way to increase the creativity, to ask questions. And no, I do not know. But I will certainly try to study that with my colleagues in the future.
Thank you. We have one quick little thing to do at the very end here. And before we do that, I want to say thank you, first of all, to the university and to Lydia especially, and to all of you for coming tonight, and to our winners. And I want to point out to you that we learn about the people and things that win Ig Nobel Prizes because people tell us. Most of the things that have won Ig Nobel Prizes, we learned from one person, not all from the same person, but each from one person who noticed something, going through old books or whatever, and told us. When you run across, when you hear something that has this quality, it makes you laugh and then think. And you're pretty sure anyone in the world would have that same reaction. Do what you always do. Tell your 3 best friends, and then please send us an email. We're going to finish tonight with Chris Moulin leading us all in something related to the word the. And before he says this, I want to inform you, the prize to Chris and his team, that was the second prize we've given related to the word the. The first one was given in 2007 to professional indexer. There are people whose profession is to make indexes in books and other things, who lives in Australia. She wrote this article called The Definite Article, Acknowledging the in Index Entries. It's all about the problems, the many problems that the existence of the word the causes for people who have to write indexes, things in alphabetical order. And one example she gives, which is now an old example, there's an old musical group called The Beatles. If you're making a list alphabetically, where do you list them? Do you list them under B for Beatles or under T for the, Beatles, comma, the? And there's any number of things like that. So that won the prize, and years later, along comes Chris and his team, winning for this piece of work, which you now know all about, or much about. And now we will finish with Chris Moulin leading us in a group recitation of the word the.
So I'd like you all to stand up, because that is actually the best way to induce jamais vu. And you'll now just repeat with me for at least 28 times the word the. 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 The end.
I do have one final thing to say. And the bananas. Thank you, everybody. It's great.
Thank you.
That was great. Danielle, that was great. Thank you.
Yes.
This is really interesting. Actually, really.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Okay.
I felt so.